Straight all day.
Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there, boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is the difference between levels is not resources. Now, this is an important principle that I've touched on from different angles here. Before I even get into explaining where this is coming from, let me remind everybody I send out a text message every morning called Daily Motivation. It is free of charge. It goes to everyone who's in my text community. This message is guaranteed to keep you focused, sharp, and on point. So if that sounds like something you want to be, and why would you not, text me at this number, 305-384-6894. And every morning when I send out the Daily Motivation, you shall receive this message. Now, and the other thing, by the way, Work on Your Game University, that's where you get access to all my coaching programs. Do I sound like someone who can coach you and help you get to another level? All my courses. I have 37 courses inside the university, over 3,000 lessons in there, and 2 physical mailings I send out every single month. If you would like access to all of that, and that is your next step, you listen to the show, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. You get access to everything there. Again, workonyourgameuniversity.com. Now, the topic today, difference between levels, is not how much resources you have or they have, and a resource, by the way, is skill. I'm saying that the difference between a person at level 2 and a person at level 5 is not that the person at level 5 is 2.5 times more skilled or even more knowledgeable necessarily than the person who is at a level 2. It is not that they have more money or more access to facilities or help or etc. or all the tangible things that many people think is the difference between levels. And for you to get from level 2 to level 5 doesn't mean you're going to be 2.5 times smarter when you get to level 5. No, that is not what the difference is. And I'm going to explain what the difference really is between one performer and someone who's at a higher level, and is the exact same thing. That the higher level person is not that the higher level person is simply better than you. It's often not the case, and that's what we're going to dive into here today. Point number 1. Topic once again: difference between levels is not resources. So let me tell you a quick story. When I was playing basketball, at one point, I had a neighbor who trained a bunch of NBA players. At the time, I'm playing overseas. He trained a bunch of NBA players. I met him. I ran into him in the elevator by chance, and he connected me to his guy who was more the basketball guy. This guy was like a off-the-court fitness guy. And he had a partner who was like the basketball guy. He introduced him to the basketball guy. The basketball guy was like, "Oh, you play overseas? Why don't you come work out with us for a week?" So I went and worked out with these NBA players for a week. And here's what happened. And this is Monday through Friday we worked out. And that matters. I'm explaining to you why that matters. Monday and Tuesday were challenging days for me. And there was points I was getting my ass kicked out there, not because I couldn't physically hang with these guys. So when it came to running, jumping, size, length, I had the ability, strength, I had the ability to physically hang with these guys, especially the guards who were all around my size or smaller. Many of them, I had more physical, as far as physical athletic gifts, I had more than a bunch of the guards who were in there playing. And most of these guys, the guys who were in the gym, there's probably 20 of us in there. There may be 3 or 4 of us who were not in the NBA. All the other guys were in the NBA. Physically, I could hang with all of the guards who were in that gym. But what was different, and the reason why it was challenging the first couple days, probably the first 2.5 days, and the last 2.5 days I did a lot better, was because here's the difference. And this is the difference in levels right here. It was how quickly these guys were processing what was happening on the court. How much faster they were able to process it than I was able to process it. They were just processing things a lot faster than I was. And that difference in processing and instinctiveness happened simply because they were playing with each other and spending time around each other all the time. So therefore, the iron was sharpening the iron, and the rich were getting richer. They were all getting that much better than everybody else because they were playing with and against each other. So it was like this natural selection process, and that's how they all were getting so much better, whereas everybody else who wasn't in the room there with them were not able to sharpen themselves, so they weren't playing against the best people every single day. This is the exact same thing that I tell you all when I say, hey, go to an event, join the mastermind, get in a course, get a coach, get around people who are playing the game at a higher level than you, because being around them is going to sharpen your sword and make you that much better. But if you're not in the room, you can't get that much better because you can't do this on your own. You're not going to get to that level by yourself. This is why you take a player who is in high school or a player who's in college and they're playing great and they're kind of above everybody else. They're a level above simply because they have a certain amount of gifts and talent, and we'll factor in a little bit of hard work that made them that much better. When they get to the higher league, the pro league, they get that much better once they get in the pro league, simply because they're playing against other pros and they have no choice but to step their game up because they're around these other players who are playing at a certain speed. And if you don't keep up, you won't stay in the league. You'll be out of a job if you can't keep up. You have to keep up the pace with what they're doing. I'll give you another example. I was at a business conference in February 2023. I was at the 10X conference, which is Grant Cardone's conference, if you're familiar with the guy. And at their conference, they had their salespeople all over the place, approaching you in the lobbies and basically trying to sell you on the next thing. Whatever the next thing is they're trying to sell, they're all in there trying to sell you the next thing. And I talked to a bunch of the salespeople. I don't have a problem with a salesperson approaching me. Even if I'm not going to buy anything, I don't have a problem with them approaching me, as long as they're polite about it, and all their salespeople were polite. And I remember asking one of the sales guys, because in sales companies, there's a lot of turnover. And even at this company, there's a lot of turnover in sales guys. Because all the people, the ones I conversed with, I would ask them, how long have you been at the company? And what'd you do before this? And many of the salespeople have only been at the company for like less than a year. A bunch of the salespeople that they had there. And that reminded me of the turnover that there is. That's just a natural thing when it comes to sales, especially when you have a high velocity sales environment. I think we can call that company a high velocity sales environment. And I asked one of the sales guys, he was like the head of one of the departments that they have there. They got a bunch of sales department. He was the head of the department. He was like, I'm the only guy from that department that's the head of it that came to the conference, because they didn't bring their whole team. They just brought some people. And one of the things that he said, this is the first job that I've ever been working 75 hours a week and loved it, is what he said. And the reason I'm bringing that up is to say this, and I remember him saying that, and I'm telling you that to tell you this, that him being in that environment is the only thing that probably would have him working 75 hours a week to make sales or do whatever it is that he's doing. I can't explain to you exactly what it is that he does, but I know he's a salesperson. He tried to sell me something, and he's still trying to sell me stuff. I gave him my number, so he's still trying to sell me stuff. The whole point is, had he been left to his own devices, working on his own, would he be putting in 75 hours a week? For most people, probably not. Now, maybe there are some of you who don't have anybody pushing you to do 75 hours a week and you're doing it anyway. You understand that you're an exception, right? You understand that that's not going to happen in a normal person left to their own devices is not going to work 75 hours a week. Even if they work hard, they probably ain't going to do 75 hours a week. But when you're in an environment where that's the norm and everybody's doing it, then you're going to step yourself up to another level just because you are around that. And if you've ever been in that kind of environment where you're pushed to do more than you would normally do, you realize that there was more in you that you otherwise never would have pulled out if you had nobody push you to do it. This is what it means for the rich to get richer. This is why people who play at a high level hang with other people who play at a high level, because it pushes everybody to play at a higher level. And over the course of that week, going back to my basketball story, I started to catch up to these guys, and I started processing the game a lot faster myself for one particular reason, because I was playing with guys who process faster. I had no choice but to process faster. Otherwise, I would have been buried on the court with these guys or buried on a bench on the sideline not playing, because I wouldn't have been able to keep up. I had to step up my processing ability simply because I was around these guys who were processing at a level faster than me. And that allowed me to pick my game up. The challenge was when that week was over, I wasn't around these guys anymore, so I couldn't ingrain that in me and make it a normal forever thing because I wasn't in that space anymore. This is the same thing that happens with all of you. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is the difference between levels is not resources. And again, that includes skill. Number 2, in business, it's the same thing. So I gave you an example of it happening in basketball, and I threw in a side example of a guy doing it in the sales world. But in business, this principle still applies. And now in business, it's not necessarily how fast you process, because you don't have to jump for a rebound in 2 seconds when somebody shoots the ball in business world. But let's say if it takes you a day and it takes another person an hour to get to an answer, you both still get the outcome. But here's what it is in business in a little bit different way. It's what are you processing and what questions are you asking? That's what makes the difference in business. What do you process and what questions do you ask? Whereas in sports, it's more black and white. As a coach, for example, as a business coach, I explain to clients and prospects all the time. All right, my role here, you come into work on your game university, I'll tell you all this off the top. My role is not to simply answer your questions. You probably have a bunch of questions. Most people who are in business, if you're even thinking about hiring a coach, it's probably because there's some kind of challenge that you have not figured out, or a problem that you have not yet solved. So you have certain questions about that challenge or problem. I want you to understand that my role is not just to answer your questions. Not that I won't answer your questions, but that's not my role. Because if all you needed was for me to answer your questions, well, look, go through the archive of this show. I have over 4,000 episodes. I mean, not 4,000, 2,000. 4,000 is close enough. Over 2,000 episodes. Go through YouTube. I got another 7,000 videos there. Now, you could probably find the answer to your question in one of those pieces of content. All right, and if you can't find it there, go to Google or YouTube, or just say Google, and you can probably find the answer to all your questions. They can do that for free. My role, when you come into my world, if you have me as a coach, my role is to replace some of your questions with better questions. So you have a question that's a level 5 question. I say, how about we answer this level 10 question instead? Instead of that question, how about we answer this question? It's going to be a better question. All right, whenever I talk to someone who is working with me, I'm going to give you some questions that you never thought about, and you're going to have some breakthroughs, and you're going to get some insights, you're going to get some paradigm shifts, simply because I'm going to replace the question that you thought you needed to answer with a better question that you actually need to answer. And that question might stump you. It might cause you to think deeply. It might cause you to think for a week. You might not even have the answer immediately. Most of the questions I'm going to give you, you're not going to have the answer to. And that's the point. That's where insights and breakthroughs come from, folks. It's not from someone answering the question that you think you need the answer to. Because again, Google has already serviced that part of the market. It's answering the question that you didn't even think about. See, that one you can't get on Google because you can't ask Google a question that you don't know. You see what I'm saying? That's my role here at Work on Your Game University. So when you come into my world, understand that's what's going to happen. All right, that's where transformations come from. All right, and that's my superpower. That's why I have the position that I have, because this is what I do best. All right, that's why I'm a strategies and a systems person and a mindset person, because we're going to flip the script on what you thought you needed to know. So I take the questions that you think you need answers to. I've replaced them with better questions that you actually need to answer. And again, often they're questions that you can't answer. I'm going to help you answer them. I'm going to pose the question. You're going to say, damn, I never thought about that, but that's a good ass question. And then we're going to work on that. All right, that's what we do here at Work on Your Game University. So if you thought coaching was something else, I'm telling you what it actually is. Now let me back up. That's what it is when you work with me. I do not speak for any other coach. So if you hire somebody else as a coach and they are not doing this for you, then hey, you gotta look in the mirror. You hired them. All right, if you come into my world, then that's exactly what's going to happen. I promise you this will happen when you work with me. This will happen even before we start working together. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is the difference between levels is not resources. Point number 3, the best way for anyone to raise their level of performance, and that would be you, so to raise your level of performance, is to get around people who are already playing at a higher level than you. Why? Why do you need to get around people who are playing at a higher level than you? Now, some of you may think the reason you do that is because they will inspire and motivate you to play the game at a higher level. And hey, maybe they will, but that's not the reason that I suggested you do it. I don't get around people. I'm in the business world now. I don't play basketball anymore. So when I go to a business event where there are people who are playing at a higher level than me, meaning they got more customers than me, more clients than me, they're doing more business, they're making more money than me, I don't get around them to get motivated and inspired. I mean, that's fine. I might get motivated and inspired, but that's not the reason why I go. I go because I want to know what they are processing, whether it be in terms of speed, quality, quantity, or a combination of all of the above. And that's what's going to make the difference for me. I want to know what questions are they asking themselves about their business that I'm not asking myself about my business. That's what I'm looking for. I don't want to get motivated and hyped up by them. I don't care what their morning routine is or any of that shit. I already got my own of that. All right, that's for me. Okay, I'm not telling y'all you have to look for that. Maybe you do want to get hyped up and motivated. Maybe that's your thing. I mean, motivation is a big industry. There's a lot of money to be made in motivation. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the processing. I want to know, what questions do you ask when you're looking at your business? I want to know, what part of your business are you paying attention to versus what I'm paying attention to in mine. Maybe there's a breakthrough that I can get if I start noticing what you're looking at and compare it to what I'm looking at. Maybe I'm looking at something that if I change my focus, I might get better outcomes. And I can learn that by talking to someone who's playing the game differently than I'm playing it. Maybe they're playing it differently. Maybe they're playing it better. Maybe they just have a different approach. There's something I can learn there, but that's what I'm looking for. And you should know what you're looking for. When you're going to work with somebody, you should know what you're looking for so you can assess whether they can provide it or not. I just told you what you're going to get when you work with me. You have these questions. You got this list of 18 questions that you think if you had the answers to these, everything would change for you. I'm going to challenge you on that and say, 7 of these 18 questions do need to be answered, but the other 11, we need to replace them with better questions. And I'm gonna give you the better questions. And then we're gonna go to work on answering them. That's what we're gonna do. You come work with me. So in case any of you want to know what it's like, I just told you. All right, now you know exactly what you're gonna get. That's what you're investing in when you go work with anyone in any space. And if that's not happening, you chose the wrong person. All right, you are not investing in raw information. If you want raw information from Baldwin, I'm giving it to you every day here on the show. I wrote 33 books. I got 8,000 videos on YouTube, and you can follow me on social media. I give you plenty of raw information that can apply to anyone. Now, if you want something that's going to help you get to where you want to go, then you got to go a level deeper, and that's workonyourgameuniversity.com. All right, the real thing you're looking for in life is not raw information. All right, Google has already taken care of that problem. So anybody who thinks they need raw information, let me introduce you to google.com. All the raw information in the world has pretty much been indexed. All right, there it is. That's not what you're investing in. The real thing you're looking for is the transformation. All right, that's when you start thinking completely differently than you were thinking yesterday, because now you understand the strategy underneath the better quality questions that you are now being provided with. That's what you need to understand. When that starts to change, your understanding of the foundational pieces, then your overall thought process and mindset starts to change. And that's when you start creating multiplication and exponential growth. That's when the growth happens. And only then. You're not gonna grow just because you got access to more information. You're not gonna grow because you read another book. Now, I'm not saying don't access information. I'm not saying don't read books. I read books. But I don't read a book because I think I'm going to multiply and exponentially grow by reading that book. I might get a great idea from a book, but really what makes me grow is when I get a different set of paradigms and a different way of looking at things and a different approach that I otherwise never would have thought of on my own. That's when things happen. And if you read enough books, at some point, again, it's the 80-20 rule. You already got about 80% of the results you're going to get from reading books. That last 20% is not going to come from reading another book. You know this. If you read enough books, you already know this. I'm not telling you anything new. Notice that nothing that I've said here today has anything to do with you getting better at your specific deliverable or your specific job. I didn't say you need to become a better financial advisor or a better personal trainer or a better basketball player or a better, what's the other things people do, a better author. You don't have to be better at cooking food if you're a chef. No, none of this has anything to do with you getting specifically better at the job that you do. That mindset shift alone is a big deal. What I just said to you alone is a big deal. And for many of you, to keep it real, many of you are not going to shift your mindset just because I said that, even though what I said is accurate. You might have to hear that 30 times before you actually allow it to absorb into your mind and you accept it as truth, but it is true. The difference between you and someone who does your same job at 50% the level that you're doing it right now, they're getting half the results that you're getting right now. It is not because you're twice as good as them. True or not? Anyone listening to this who you can measure and you can see where you are in your industry versus somebody else in your industry and you're doing basically twice as well as them, is it because you're twice as good at the job as they are? Probably not. You're not twice as good as them. Y'all might be pretty close when it comes to skill, or it may be kind of hard to define who's better than who at what you're doing. You both are probably offering pretty similar things, if we're being honest. What's the difference between you and them? Difference is, what are you looking at? What are you processing? What questions are you asking? What challenges are you addressing versus what they're addressing? Where are you putting your time, your focus, your energy, your attention, and your money? Oh, you notice those five forms of investment. Episode 609. That mindset shift is a big deal. And this shift is one that many people never make. And this is why some people stay at an average level and some people go to a higher level. It's the way that we are thinking. What are you thinking about? That's where the difference happens. All that said, in a second I'll tell you how to get into my world so I can help you actually do this in your real life and in your real business so we can take it out of theory and turn it into something tangible. But first, let me recap this class. Today's class topic is: the difference between levels is not resources. It is not about you being better than somebody else or having more money or having access to more people or having more quote unquote help. Point number one: when I was playing ball with NBA guys, one of the first things I noticed about them was not that they were physically so much better than me. It was that they processed the game at a level and at a speed at which I was not used to processing. So I was getting my ass kicked the first couple of days. Then when I caught up to the processing level, I was hanging with these guys. They process the game at a different level. And the reason why they do that is because they play against each other every single day. And the reason why I wasn't doing it because I wasn't playing against guys like that every single day. And it's the exact same thing that happens with all of you, no matter what you do for a living. Number two, in business, it's the same thing, though it's not necessarily how fast you process. It is what are you processing. So as a coach, for example, I explain to clients and prospects all the time, my goal is not to answer your questions. My role is not to answer your questions. Google has already solved that problem, answering questions. The challenge for me and what I'm going to do for you is providing better quality questions to you. It's not giving you answers to the questions that you showed up with, because if that's all you really needed, then I got 2,500 episodes of this podcast that pretty much already did that for you. So if that's all you needed, just listen to this podcast. I answer all your questions. Here's the problem. Answering your questions is not going to get you where you want to go, because the questions that you're asking are not the questions that you need to be asking. That's why you get a coach. Point number three, best way for anyone to raise your level of performance is to get around people who are already playing at a higher level, because their process of processing and speed, quality, quantity, a combination of all of the above is where the transformation happens. You are not investing in information, folks. You're investing in transformation. Transformation happens when you stop thinking the way you were thinking before, i.e. your questions, and you start thinking in a different way, i.e. my questions. And any coach that you ever have, I don't care if they're a personal trainer, physical therapist, a mental therapist, emotional therapist, whatever they call those people, a doctor, or a business coach like me, they should be providing you with better quality questions. At the end of every session you have with them, you should be saying to yourself, damn, they introduced me to some ways of thinking that I wasn't thinking about. If I hadn't talked to them, I never would have thought about it that way. I promise you, every person who has worked with me, that's what they say at the end of the session that they work with me. Ask anybody who's worked with me. If you want proof of this, go to alldreallday.com. Yes, I own that website. alldreallday.com. On that website, here's what you're going to see. You're going to see a bunch of videos. You're going to see written feedback. You're going to see all different kinds of feedback of people saying exactly what I just told you. All right, so I'm not lying to you. I got proof. I have a preponderance of proof of how this works. Again, go to alldreallday.com. You can see it for yourself. We got videos, we got written, we got screenshots, we got testimonials, all of that. Now, how do you get involved in this? Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. workonyourgameuniversity.com, and you got a couple options. One, you can schedule a call with me. You can get into my direct coaching program where you get access to everything else that I'm about to say. You're being coached with me, you get access to everything else I'm about to tell you about. Level two is where if you don't want to be coached right now, you just want to get access to all my courses and you will learn on your own pace. My 37 courses, 3,000 plus lessons, then there's another button there for you to just get access to the courses right now. You can start taking those courses within the next 2 minutes. And the third option is you can get my physical mailings, the Bulletproof Bulletin and the Black Book, every single month straight to your doorstep. You're being coached when you get everything that's on that page. So that's workonyourgameuniversity.com. And text me. Tell me the best insight you got from today's class. My number is 305-384-6894. Work on your game. Dre all day.